And now, Mr. Speaker, I'd like to recognize my good friend and colleague from the great state of Kansas, Mr. Yoder, for as much time as he may consume.
Well, I appreciate my friend from Illinois for putting together this hour for us to be able to come down and have a conversation about how we protect the American farmer. For months and months now, we've been having a debate in the United States House and Senate about how we can put together legislation that will ensure that the men and women who bring in the crops, who tend to the livestock, who create the food source for our nation and the world, have certain policies that are predictable and that encourage farming as a way of life to continue in the United States. So I join my colleagues here, those from down in southern Illinois to, we just heard from my colleague Dan Banachek from Michigan, who believes passionately in agriculture and protecting farmers. They're today united, standing on behalf of the farmers in our country. So I call on my colleagues to help us get a farm bill done. Farmers have been waiting a long time for Congress to work together to find a solution. We are obviously divided on a lot of things, but we ought to be united on helping protect the American farmer and our American food supply. You know, in Kansas, farming is not just a means to make money, and certainly it's a significant part of the Kansas economy. Along with several other parts, farming and agriculture is a key component of the Kansas economy. But it's also a way for Kansans and Americans to put food on the table for the world. You know, Kansas is the #1 wheat producer in the country. Wheat that ends up feeding hungry Kansans, hungry Americans in all 50 states and on most continents. They put in long, hard hours to bring in millions of bushels of grain that will end up on the tables of an entire nation and the entire world. But it's also a way of life. Now farmers at home right now, I just spoke with a farmer earlier today, farmers are bringing in, they're harvesting their soybeans, some are still picking corn. For generations, people have come to states like Kansas and Illinois and California and Michigan, and they've come to build a way of life. They have taken in the case of Kansas, a prairie. It was undeveloped. They came out there and they brought their families, and they took risk, much risk, to carve a lifestyle out of the prairie. And through that hard work, through that determination, through that sweat off their brow, they tamed the wilderness. And in the process, they helped build the greatest nation the world has ever seen. And along the way, they asked for little in return. They built a nation with great bedrock values, good schools, good communities, but it was all centered around the small family farmer. And so that's one of the things we're down here to protect and to talk about, is continuing that American tradition of the small family farmer. Hard. They work long days, sun up to sundown. Sometimes farmers will work through the night, 24-hour shifts even, to bring in the crops when the time has to come. And I grew up on a farm myself. I remember going out, and my dad going out in the middle of the winter and bringing a round bale to our cattle, and ensuring that the livestock could have feed, and that meat that they produced, we produced, and farmers produce all across the country, that ends up taking care of Americans everywhere. And so now those farmers, they're counting on us. When they plant their fall crops, they need predictability and they need certainty. It's time to move past short-term bills. It's time to move past short-term promises. We need to move towards long-term policy that will create stability, that will allow farmers to plan, to allow farmers to go back to doing what they do best: growing food, feeding a hungry nation. This fall, Kansas farmers are hard at work bringing in the autumn harvest, and they're planting the 2014 crop. They have patiently waited for Congress to act on the Farm Bill. Now is the time to move forward. The Farm Bill provides farmers with crucial safety net programs that allow them to protect their operations from uncertainty and the sudden downturns that can occur when growing crops and raising livestock. These programs are essential in providing farmers with the certainty they need to be successful. So as we have this larger debate about how to solve the debt crisis, I think farmers have been admirable in this debate. Farmers came forward and said, look, we receive direct payments. We know that's a burden on the Treasury. We know there's a lot of burdens on the Treasury. We hope that we can all pitch in to help solve our national debt crisis. We're going to give those things up. And every other group that comes before Washington, most groups give up nothing. They want more. In fact, in Washington, when you don't get more than you got last year, it's a cut. And farmers said, we're willing to take a cut. We're willing to take billions of dollars of cuts because we want to do our part to ensure that we're helping resolve the national debt crisis. So they were first in line. And some of that support was very crucial to farms. It has been crucial to farmers to keep them from turning into bankruptcy, from farms from turning under. They're giving that up. No more direct payments. And that's the kind of reforms we need to do. Now, what they've asked for in return is a little protection of risk. The expense today to put out a field of crops of corn or soybeans or milo in Kansas, wheat, creates a tremendous amount of risk. Risk that banks won't cover unless there is some sort of protection. In the event of a flood, in the event of a hailstorm, a drought, sometimes all of the above, you can wipe out a single crop overnight. These farmers have invested their entire livelihood. They don't have a 401k. They don't have a pension. They don't have some corporate plan to protect their retirement. Their retirement, their future is in the crop they're laying out in that field. And the proceeds from that crop, they're going to go and invest in the next crop. And so if that crop goes under and there's no crop insurance, there's no protection for those farmers, then those farmers go under. They go bankrupt, and that way of life ends. And so, yes, my heart goes out to those farmers that may occur to, but it's a larger issue than just the farmers. Without crop insurance, without that protection, those farmers, they lose those farms. That means we don't have a food supply that we can count on. That means that the world doesn't have the food that they need to feed the hungry. And I know most people get food from the grocery store these days, but it comes from the fields of Kansas and Illinois and places in between. So it's my hope that Congress, Democrats, Republicans, House, Senate, and the President will work together in the coming days to put a farm bill on the floor that we can all get behind, that can go to the President's desk and receive his signature. We've got a lot of divisions, but we should be united today, all of us, in protection and fighting for the American farmer. And with that, I yield back.